Hey guys, in today's video we're gonna be covering basically what it's like to use the Viltrox 135 for astrophotography. More specifically, if you're gonna be trying to chase some not so far deep space objects, and why I was in a rush to move over from my Viltrox 85mm lens, which I have used in the past. Now I am doing astrophotography on a budget, if you can say that, owning a Sony camera and a couple of nice lenses. But that is where I'm trying to say that I do not own a star tracker. I only have a camera, lens, and a tripod. Now, if you wanna me to make a more in-depth video in how to capture, how to organize your files, how to stack them, how to stretch them, and actually get to the result itself, make sure you comment down below. Today I'm just going to talk through about the experience of using the 135. We're going to look at the latest Orion's constellation that I shot using this thing on a tripod, roughly how I did it, what softwares I used to stack it and stretch it, and just overall like user experience, I suppose. Now, as I mentioned in the past, I've extensively used my Viltrox 85mm, which is lovely. And this, for the price, what you get is an absolutely lovely lens if you shoot some portraiture or whatever. Indoors, outdoors, natural light, whatever. This thing is gonna cut it quite nicely. If you do own a Sony body, that is one of the R variants with a higher resolution, as this one's here is the R3. You have an access to a very lovely crop mode, which crops into, I don't know, like a crop, whatever the crop is, like 1.6 times whatever. And this 85 of Viltrox becomes a something like, I don't know, 112 or whatever. And that is how I used to use this for astrophotography, and I was very desperate for that reach. Therefore I was always dreaming about 135. So here is the 135, which I actually discovered if I want to fit in the whole Orion's belt and the nebula, flame on the top, horse head, and all that shenanigans. And if I go horizontal, I'll explain you why I go horizontal, because it feels a little safer. I don't actually need to use the crop mode. Now, after obviously you've done the image and it's ready, you can obviously crop in a little bit tighter, but the 135 is a very lovely focal length for near deep space objects. Now, in direct comparison to all other lenses that I own, whenever I go out to shoot Milky Way or some sort of deep space object, I know it's only a few buttons, but I'm not the biggest fan to go through the menu in the Sony camera to look for option to switch it into the manual focus. And I've dreamt of a switch like that because the 85 doesn't have a single switch. My wider angle 24-70 from Samyang has a custom switch, but that is just a custom switch. That is not for manual or auto, although I'm not entirely sure if you can reprogram it, so I might be tripping there. Now, the Viltrox 135 has plenty of buttons on it. I am so happy to see the autofocus to manual focus, so as soon as you go outside, you just smack it into the manual and enjoy your night out. Now, the process of capturing deep space without a tracker is fairly simple. You go out, obviously, you focus, you find your object, and I usually try to keep it more or less the center. You know, when you get these lines of like the rule of thirds, usually due to the Earth's rotation, your subjects are going to go one way or the other, I suppose, whichever end of the Earth you live in. And then as you take the pictures, it's going to move through the shot. For me, it was left to right. I don't know if it's going to translate correctly in the video, but it was, for me, it was from the left to right and slightly down, so diagonally it was moving down. So what I usually do, I like to compose my target in the rule of thirds, like one of the crossing bits. on the top. For example, in this time I did it on the top, and I just went intervalometer. I did start shooting, and it was going down the middle square of the rule of thirds, down diagonally. And I suggest you not to let it go closer to the edges, because once we're gonna do the stacking, the edges of those frames can be kind of messed up a lot. So you want to keep your subject as centered as possible. And basically, not owning a tracker, you basically take a set of images, readjust, take a set of images, readjust, and you just go on until whatever you get bored, or the clouds roll in, or you think the information is plenty for a stack. Obviously, the longer you keep going like this, the better. Obviously, there are some calibration frames as the bias and dark frames and whatnot. Again, if you want to, for me to make a more in-depth video on how I actually get to the final result, make sure you let me know. But the usability of the lens was super good. Obviously, as I said, the 135 is a lovely focal length for this. The focusing was super easy. To make sure I focus more accurately, I actually went into the crop mode, and then I did the manual focus, again digital magnification on the screen, so you can actually get very close to the stars and make sure you focus it and it stays nice and, well, as sharp as it can be. You will only see how sharp it is realistically when you get to the last final image. The images, we'll just jump into the computer. You can see there's a lot of dark images. I'm going to open you one of the raw files, what it looked like. And a tip I can give you, well, it automatically brightens it up. I don't know why Windows 11 does that with Sony RAW files, but it does. Obviously, it didn't look that bad. What I can suggest you, shutter speed wise, I think I did 1 second exposures. The longer your focal length is going to be, the shorter exposure you will be able to do. 1 second f1.8, ISO 3200. And for those who have done deep space, please don't yell at me. I know there's a correct formula to calculate your ISO and your shutter speed, but I just kind of YOLO'd. It was very last moments for the Orion to be up, and I was like, I'll just shoot whatever. So yeah, that's what the raw files look like. They're actually pitch black. And yeah, so make sure you do some test shots, make sure the stars aren't in streaks, because you can't really have too long shutter speed with 135. And these text files that you can see here are from the Deep Sky Stacker. They calibrate, register the pictures, and they add these little files. And I didn't actually know, but it looks like they make .cal.tiff, this calibration frame. Can I open it? Can I see? I suppose this is like a calibration frame or something. And this is where the Orions, obviously the nebula should be, the Running Man, and the flame should be around here with the horse head around here. So these are the files I was working with, and after you stack them in the Deep Sky Stacker, you chuck it into the Adobe Photoshop and you start working with the levels, with the darks and the mids, and you start stretching out, pulling out those details. And I mean, frankly, this is the result I was able to get with the Samyang's 135. And technically speaking, this is the best and the highest resolution deep space shoot I've ever done in my life, obviously, because I've not owned a 135 before. That helps a lot. This is slightly cropped in, just to kind of show off the nebulous a little bit more. But once I zoom in, I know it's gonna look a little bit potato-y, but just remember, this is off a tripod, stacked images. Like, I have never ever been able to capture a detail, the detail like this ever before I bought this Viltrox 135. And you can just see all of the different layers of the details. You can see the deep blacks here, you can see the ring going around here, you can see all of these details. Like, this is quite something to me, at least for a budget shoot. Let's call it a budget shoot. Obviously these paler spots here are probably some more dust and nebula that was picked up and actually stretched out of the image that really doesn't contain any color in them. Well, at least with my setup. Therefore, it looks like there are less stars, but I would like to think there's more like some sort of dust or whatever atmospheric, whatever going on in the space. That's why they're kind of like a blank spots there. The Running Man up here, hands down, I've never ever captured this specific area of this subject in so much detail, where you can actually see shapes and some depths and some curves, and like just like it's crazy to me that it is just possible sitting at home with a tripod. It's just absolutely stunning. Now if we go up to the flame is something that it just always looks good, no matter what you use, no matter how you shoot. It just like you can almost take a single exposure and just find it somehow. Very happy with how the flame looks. The horse head is kind of smudgy. I mean, if you know what it is, you'll be fine. You know, the pinky purpley red streak here and the horse head, you can tell it's there and it is visible. Is it the sharpest that I've ever had? I'm not entirely sure, but overall this image is, as I said, the highest ever resolution I've taken with my Sony body from a tripod. Technically the best. Is it not necessarily the sharpest? It's definitely one of the sharpest, but I think I've had some similar sharpness results with the Viltrox AT5 shooting in the crop mode. And I am thoroughly satisfied. I am super satisfied with how this thing turned out. Again, if you want to see the full process, I can try and redo it. Just the problem with deep space and stacking and stretching is like, for me personally, I never ever get the same results. So for me to replicate this specific stretch would probably be slightly tricky, because like you just go off vibes. Obviously there are some correct steps to do and you know, look for, but generally it just goes off the vibe, it goes off your style, what you want to see, and you just kind of do the sliders and whatnot. So yeah, we're gonna be continuing using the Viltrox 135 as much as we want, because this is the lens I've absolutely dreamt of. Hopefully we'll get some people portrait shoots, I don't know, some outdoor, indoor, maybe with some flashes and things like that. Very excited to be owning this and using this, and hopefully this has been somewhat useful. If you're considering a 135 on a Sony full frame, then this is gonna cut it quite nicely. Yeah, I think it's a solid lens for this. And again, yeah, thank you so much guys for watching. Any questions, let me know down below, and I will most certainly see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.